UFC 299 is this weekend. I'm going to give you a prediction and breakdown of all 14 fights on this card. It is a very, very beautiful card, especially the one after this one as well. So we got some really good pay-per-view cards. I'm not talking about the fight night. I don't even know what the next fight night is, I'm going to be honest. But the next pay-per-view card, UFC 300, looks as good as well. But this one is fantastic. I can't wait to actually watch this one. It feels like it's been a while, but the first fight, I will say, I'm not looking forward to it at all. I'll probably skip. I'm going to be honest. Joanne Wood versus Maryna Moroz. I believe they have fought before. I was looking through. I didn't want to do too much research for this fight because it would just completely kill my mood for the entire card. But yeah, she lost to Maryna Moroz by armbar all the way back in 2015 when she was a lot younger. I'm going to go with Maryna Moroz when they're a lot older, and she's at, 32 compared to Joanne Wood, who's 38. Maybe I'm a little bit wrong here. I honestly don't care. I'm just going to say Maryna Moroz by decision. She won by armbar the first time. It's probably the way to go. Joanne Wood's all right. Maybe you could say a couple years ago, but then I don't know. Let's move on. I'm going Maryna Moroz by decision. She won the first fight. I think she can win the second one as well. All right, now we can move on to the actual card. At least there's like a prospect here. CJ Vergara versus Assu Almabayev, who actually is a pretty good wrestler. He does have a very good innate finishing ability that I do like to see. He got that rear naked choke over Ode Osborne, who is more of a striker compared to what CJ Vergara. Maybe he's going to be a little bit more knowledgeable. I guess he did hang in there for a second against Pereira before he got submitted, and Pereira is like an absolute wizard on the ground. But I think Assu Almabayev has that ability to just finish guys similarly to like Shavkat Rakhmonov, where although Shavkat has 100% finish rate, you can tell, like, for example, we'll go Steve Erceg. Although Steve Erceg just got a finish in his last fight against Matt Schnell, who doesn't really have a chin. And that's probably a pretty big reason why. I know he does have 6 decisions on his record. I just think that Assu Almabayev has the ability to finish, like, is a finisher in general. Like, he'll find ways to win fights, especially on the ground, and I think he can do the same here against a Vergara who hasn't looked too great recently. I guess he beat Vinicius Salvador. I don't even know if he's still in the UFC. He won that one by decision. Beat Daniel Lacerda by KO after I think he was losing that first round. I think it was like comeback fight of the year or whatever, but didn't look too good there. Got submitted by Tetsuya Terra as well. I think Assu Almabayev, his striking is a little iffy. I think he's going to be able to close the distance here, take CJ Vergara, dominate him on the ground, and then eventually get the submission in the first or second round here. So I'm going to go with Assu Almabayev by submission, 30-year-old guy that's making, I think, what was he in? He made his debut against Ode Osborne. We'll see how he looks in this fight. 30 years of age. We'll see how much is left in the flyweight, because age range towards like the bottom of the divisions in the UFC are a little bit more interesting. We'll see what Assu Almabayev can do later on in his career. Up the card, we have Robelis Despaigne versus Josh Parisian. I don't think I even said that name right. I'll probably just call him Robelis. I'm going to go with Robelis. Josh Parisian is not good at all. Just looking through some of the guys he's fought and lost to. I mean, just getting into the recent fights, Martin Buday, a solid fighter. He's kind of boring, I'm going to be honest, but and he got finished by him. I'm going to be honest. Like, has Martin Buday, how many finishes does Martin Buday have, especially in the UFC? So he had some finishes outside the UFC, but all the way coming into the UFC, technical decision on the Contender Series, he's got a finish, but decision, and then finally got the finish against Parisian, and then lost to Gaziev. So this is what we're looking at. Jamal Pogue's a very technical for, can I even say for heavyweight? He's a decent striker on the feet. And he lost to Dante Almeida. Robelis Despaigne, 87 inches of reach, 6'7", really good striker. In his last 3 fights, it has not gone longer than 12 seconds in the entirety of 2023, and he has absolutely knocked out these guys. I know it's a 1-0, 0-0, 0-0, but this guy's a very good, very good fighter. Has nukes in his hands. I think he's going to KO Josh Parisian in the first round. Extreme size advantage here. What is this, an 8-inch reach advantage? I think that's the biggest reach in the UFC currently, because John Jones has like an 84 85, I think, on the UFC website, just depending on what you're looking at. But I think this is the biggest reach in the UFC. I think he's one of the bigger fighters in the UFC. I don't know if anyone stacks up with 6'7", so I'm going Robelis in this fight, first round KO. Up the card, we have Philipe Lins versus Ion Cutelaba. I was a little iffy on this fight because I'm going to be completely honest here. I just can't trust Cutelaba, but I think I am going to go with him here. I mean, he's a good fighter, as much as in like one round, and then after it seems like the fight IQ kind of just wears off a little bit, and it's just not really there. Like, he's looked really good in all three of his last, or not his last three, but in his 3 losses recently, he's looked really good there before getting finished. He beat Tanner Boser, and this is what kind of made it iffy. The stoppage was a little iffy for the Tanner Boser fight. Like, Tanner Boser was like slowly making his way up, and the fight got stopped. So I like Ion Cutelaba, good power in his hands, a good grappler as well. Like, an all-around fighter, very explosive. It's just the fight IQ that kind of worries me. But when I see Philipe Lins, I just don't think, especially at 38 years of age, even with a 3-inch reach advantage, I don't think he's going to be able to finish Ion Cutelaba. Like, I don't look at Philipe Lins and think, oh, he's going to KO Ion Cutelaba, even though Ion Cutelaba's fight IQ is just not very good. I'm going to go Cutelaba by TKO in the late first round. I don't think this one goes to a decision. If it goes to a decision, I am kind of worrying, even after like the first round. In all honesty, if there's a live bet going on, I think I might look at Philipe Lins if this does get past the first round, just to see like kind of what the odds are. Because I don't know, they don't have the odds here, but I'm assuming, I don't know who's going to be the favorite here. I'm assuming it's going to be closer odds. So if someone's dominating the first round, the odds are going to probably sway pretty heavily. I would, at least what I'm going to do, I'm probably going to look at a live bet potentially for Philipe Lins if this does go past the first round. So I'm going with Ion Cutelaba. I'm not 100% comfortable with this fight, even though Philipe Lins is like 8 years older than him. I can't really trust Cutelaba, but I will say this. I think his last fight, he finally started doing the screaming things at like the face-off where he just screams in the dude's face. If he does that again, I think he wins. I think these last 3 losses, I think he's a little bit more tame. He stopped doing it, and I think that's why he lost. So if he screams in Philipe Lins' face, I think he wins this fight. If he doesn't, then I am kind of worried. So let's move on. I'm going on Ion Cutelaba, first round TKO. He just has a lot of power, can grapple as well. I'm just worried about the fight IQ. Up the card, we have Michel Pereira versus Michal Oleksiejczuk. Again, another interesting one. Michal Oleksiejczuk is actually a pretty decent middleweight fighter. However, I am going to go with Michel Pereira. I know in his last fight he did beat Andre Petrosky by KO, and maybe that's not like a super impressive win. I mean, not many people have beaten Petrosky. I think he lost on The Ultimate Fighter, and I think he lost the fight before is what I want to say. No, actually, Michel, he lost to Aaron Jeffrey, who's a pretty decent Bellator fighter, at least they're at the top of their division, and then lost to Michel Pereira. So Michel Pereira was able to KO him. What I will say is going from welterweight to middleweight, I think there's a lot of success from there. Like, if you look at I'll say like the last 3 of the 5 champions that the middleweight division has had, Sean Strickland, Robert Whittaker, and Dricus du Plessis, all former welterweights, former champions. I think there's a lot of success, especially with some divisions when you move up. And I do think like the style, especially for Michel Pereira, he's very athletic, and I think he's definitely built for middleweight, and he's fighting with a lot of welterweights and was making it decently competitive with those guys as well. It was towards like the unranked area. However, I think he's explosive enough. You do kind of worry that he's going to do a bunch of flashy stuff, especially on this big UFC 299 card, and maybe Michal's just going to end up like TKOing him or just outlasting him for like the 3 rounds and getting the decision victory, like 29-28 style. However, I think he's built for middleweight. I think him moving up from welterweight, going up to like from a more technical style at welterweight to middleweight division, I think is definitely going to help him here. So I don't know, does he get the TKO win over Michal Oleksiejczuk? I don't mind it. A lot of people, what is this? What are we looking at here? 50% for KO for Pereira here. I think so too. Maybe second round TKO as well, say, for Michel Pereira. Up the card, we have Pedro Munhoz versus Kyler Phillips. I am going to go with Pedro Munhoz here. I do like Kyler Phillips as a fighter. Like, he's he's got good grappling, got good stand-up as well, a very wild fighter as well, and he's very entertaining to watch. However, I think Pedro Munhoz, who did have some really good success against Sean O'Malley, at least, I mean, just depending on how you view that fight, it was just he threw only leg kicks, and I don't even know necessarily how the scoring criteria looks at leg kicks, especially if they're checked, because it is damage-based scoring. However, like a checked leg kick will do damage to the guy throwing it, but you can't really, I don't know how they score it, but I believe they did give Pedro Munhoz that first round. And I do think that the fact that shut down O'Malley's game, especially early on in that fight, I think it could do the same thing to Kyler Phillips. The thing with Chito Vera, he was able to kind of just stand in the pocket. He's durable, really tough there. I think a guy like Kyler Phillips is going to get his legs shoot out very badly. I don't think he has a very solid jab. Like Chito Vera actually had to step up his output to even make it a very competitive fight with Pedro Munhoz, which he really needed to do, because Chito Vera just is way too calm and then explode. Like he's not active enough to go with Pedro Munhoz, especially tit for tat. So he needed to do that. I don't think Kyler Phillips can stand in the pocket, just eat those leg kicks and fire back there. I just don't think he can do that. I think his legs are going to get chopped up. I think this is going to go to a decision. I think it just eliminates most of his offense. Pedro Munhoz, even though he is 37 years of age, very quick getting in to the pie. I know he will be at like a very big reach disadvantage here, 7 inches. I think he's just going to be able to pop in and out, hit him with the leg kick, and do kind of like what he did to Chris Gutierrez, just limit that game a little bit more. And I think Chris Gutierrez throws a little bit more leg kicks than what Kyler Phillips will do. So he's going to make it a little bit more challenging for a guy like Munhoz on the outside. Even though Kyler Phillips is very dangerous and can wrestle and all that, I don't think that's going to be a factor here for this fight. I think Pedro Munhoz is just going to tear up his legs and win this one probably 29-28. Maybe he does land really well on Pedro Munhoz and just drops him at some point, but I'm going Pedro Munhoz 29-28 decision. Pretty split on Tapology. Most people are going to Phillips. Minus 225 for Phillips here, so maybe a pretty good underdog for Pedro Munhoz here. Up the card, we have Mateusz Gamrot versus Rafael dos Anjos. I'm going to go with Mateusz Gamrot here. I think his style, dare you say, a little bit similar to Colby Covington, especially when they fought. Now is up a division. Now this is at lightweight where Mateusz Gamrot is just going to absolutely drown you. Although I don't think he mixes in the striking, I will say, as well as Colby, or at least what we perceived as Colby's last fight didn't look that well or look that great. But I think the pressure will just be a little bit too much for Rafael dos Anjos. Even though dos Anjos did pretty good then, he's 39 years of age, going down to lightweight to face Mateusz Gamrot, who I believe is in the top 5 at this point. I'm going to go with Gamrot here. I think he's just going to be a little bit too much. I think he's just going to end up drowning dos Anjos in this fight. I don't think it's going to be, I think it's going to be like a 30-27 decision. I'm going to be honest. I don't think Gamrot has really a threat on the ground for submission or like a TKO or anything like that. He's really just going to out wrestle you, just get those points in, and I think he ends up getting the 30-27 decision here. Nothing too crazy on the analysis side. I just think that his forward pressure, very similar again to the Colby Covington style that RDA did do pretty well at that point, but I do think, especially at lightweight, being 40 years of age is not going to help him here as well. So I'm going to go with Mateusz Gamrot, 30-27 decision. Up the card, we have Caitlin Sermonara. I'm pretty sure that's Caitlin Chukagian versus Macy Barber. I think she just got married or something. I'm not sure. Hasn't fought in a year and 4 months after losing to Manon Fiorot. Macy Barber, 25 years of age, kind of a controversial rise in the UFC, if we could say that. I think the Miranda Maverick, really rough decision. Beat Montana De La Rosa by decision, beat Jessica Ai by decision. Andrea Lee won that one, got a little bit of some controversy as well. A lot of people thought Andrea Lee won that fight. I could see it going to Macy Barber. It's what you do with the takedowns. I don't know. I think some people score women's MMA a little bit differently, but it is what it is. It's at the end of the day, it's a women's MMA fight with Andrea Lee and Macy Barber. So I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. However, 2 very controversial decisions on the rise. Beat Amanda Ribas by ground and pound in the second round, though, which is actually a pretty decent win to have. Now she's going in the top 5 against a pretty game opponent, and Caitlin Chukagian, or at least what I would say game. She hasn't fought again in a year, 4 months, just got married. I just wonder how committed she is at this point. She was beating, or at least can I even see like a gatekeeper for like the top 5? I don't even know if that's a thing for Chookagian. She's just a very good top contender in that women's division. She was kind of just defeating all these other women to get to that title picture. Like she beat Ribas, beat Maya, beat Araujo, Calvillo in 2020. I guess that's what that is. Lost to Jessica Andrade, Shevchenko, Jessica I when she at least, or I think that was before she got the title shot against Shevchenko. I don't even know why I'm digging all the way down here. I'm not going to even, right after or right before she lost to the Shevchenko by getting head kicked. But she's kind of been up there in that division. I don't think she's as committed. She's 10 years older than Macy Barber in this fight. I'm going with Macy Barber by decision here. I don't think there's going to be a finish. It's going to be a decent fight though. I think it's going to be pretty technical. We'll see what Macy Barber can bring here. But I'm going with Macy Barber by decision. 29-28. I think it's going to be relatively close. And it's not going to be like controversial close, but who knows at this point. Card we have Curtis Blades versus Jailton Almeida. I'm going to go with Jailton Almeida. I don't really... How good is Curtis Blades wrestling? I'm going to be... Jailton Almeida is just so strong. I think he's positionally, he's a better grappler than Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades maybe has pretty good wrestling, but I think that ability to get guys to the ground, like he couldn't... Again, I don't even know if we still know how good Sergey Pavlovich's takedown defense is, but he couldn't get Sergey down. I know he got rocked right before then. Couldn't get Derek Lewis down. Derek Lewis, again, has good takedown defense. So who really knows how good Curtis Blades' wrestling is? I just think Jailton Almeida is just going to be stronger. He's going to be better in the grappling. He's going to be better with those positions. I think he wins this one by ground and pound TKO. I don't know if he submits Curtis Blades. I don't think Curtis Blades, 17-4, doesn't really have too many losses in the UFC. All 4 of his losses are by KO. I can see this one being like a ground and pound TKO win for Jailton Almeida, or it can just be very similar to the Derek Lewis fight where Curtis Blades is kind of just chilling under Jailton Almeida for like 3 rounds. It could just be like that, or I could just see it being like ground and pound TKO shots in like the first or second round here. I don't think this one stays on the feet very long. Curtis Blades is very dangerous on the feet, especially for Jailton Almeida, who isn't as good on the feet. So Jailton Almeida is going to get this one to the ground. I think he's going to be a lot stronger than Curtis Blades, even though he's 236 pounds. We've seen him. He's very strong, probably on the sauce for sure. But I do think he's a better grappler. I think he's going to be better in those positions. Probably just land the ground and pound shots. If not, 30-27 decision. I think he probably just rides him to a decision. If he doesn't get the TKO in the late first or second round here. So I'm going with Jailton Almeida in this fight. Up the card, we have Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. This one's pretty interesting as well because Petr Yan, poor guy's on a 3-fight losing skid after losing to Moroz. I think he, what was that, 49, 46, 50, 45, where he just got completely worn down by those takedown attempts because I think he only landed like 11 out of like the 46 or something. I don't even know how many exactly. It was in the 40s for sure. But yeah, had a rough fight against Moroz. Lost a pretty close decision to Sean O'Malley, which a lot of people think is pretty controversial. I think there's a pretty decent argument for Sean O'Malley to win that fight. I didn't think it was as crazy as a controversy, but again, very close fight. Same thing with the Aljamain Sterling fight, very close fight as well. Of course, he had the grounded knee with one. So it's very weird to see Petr Yan on this little skid here. He's very good. You can definitely see that in his fights that he's extremely good. I just wonder, like, if he does end up losing this fight, where does he go? I do think he actually wins. I will say that. I think he wins. Song Yadong, 26 years of age, a lot of power in his hands. I just don't think he's as technical on the feet as Petr Yan. And I do think if Petr Yan does want to wrestle a little bit, I think he can against Song Yadong. I know Song Yadong is very, very strong, again, very powerful, does have some decent combinations of his own. But Corey Sandhagen was taking down Song Yadong, and I know he got right back up, but I think even then for Petr Yan, if he's able to just implement that a little bit, maybe like do those trips that he was doing to Aljamain Sterling in that first fight, I think he could have some success against Song Yadong in the wrestling there, and then just mix in his striking, which I do think is a lot more technical than Song Yadong. He's going to be a lot faster. Again, he does have some really good, or at least pretty decent power in his hands as well. So I think he's going to beat up Song Yadong relatively bad here. The only way I see Petr Yan winning this one is if he gets caught, and that would be even worse to see because, again, it's worse seeing like the skid that Petr Yan's on with the last 3 fights here. If he gets hurt very badly and like TKO, that's going to be very rough to watch. I think he change camps. I heard that he might have changed camps, or at least left away from Tiger Muay Thai or something like that. So I don't know exactly what his camp's looking like. He did take some substantial time off. It's been, about a year? So we'll see what he looks like in there. I think he will look a little bit better than Song Yadong. Again, Song Yadong is 26 years of age. People will probably look at his Chris Gutierrez fight and think like, oh, it wasn't that impressive, which is pretty true. When I heard, like, they put those little fire background things before they come out. When I heard him say like, oh, this should be easy and all that stuff, I'm like, oh boy. Hopefully he's not overlooking Chris Gutierrez. And Chris Gutierrez didn't really give him much. I'm gonna be honest. Like, Chris Gutierrez the effort didn't seem really there to where the openings would be for Song Yadong to eventually get a KO, because just Gutierrez's style where he's on the outside doesn't really, or at least didn't take too many risks, it felt like, was comfortable just laying on the ground there. It wasn't a great match, or at least visually for Song Yadong. It didn't look too great for him. So I'm going to go with Petr though. I think he's going to be a lot more technical on the feet. He does have the ability to trip and wrestle a little bit more, which I think will help him, especially mixing into this fight. And I think it will definitely be a little bit of a difference maker. I'm going to say 29-28. I think this is a relatively close fight, especially with the power of Song Yadong. You never really know if maybe Petr going to get hit with something or tagged a little bit, and maybe Song Yadong steals around that way. But I don't know if he could 30-27 Song Yadong. I'm going to be honest. Like, he could completely out-technique him, like just destroy the legs of Song Yadong and just turn him into a punching bag a little bit. If this is like prime Petr, who's 31 at this point, like, that's absolutely insane. But anyways, I'm going Petr. I'll go 29-28 decision. I think Song Yadong maybe just lands a couple shots and maybe early on in the fight, but I do think Petr pulls away with it. Again, he's been a slower starter. I would say in like his 5-round fights, that was a pretty big thing there. Same thing with his 3-round fights. The first round, he does start a little bit slower, but then starts picking up. So I'll say first round for Song Yadong, but I think 29-28 decision for Petr. I think he pulls away in this one. Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena. I am going to go with JDM in this fight. Gilbert Burns probably coming in with some sort of injury, I will say. Well, I guess that's a pretty interesting way to start it here. 37 years of age, coming off of a rougher injury against Bilal Muhammad. I think he failed a takedown or something like that and dislocated his shoulder. I don't know exactly what the injury was, but it was a pretty rough injury. Again, he's getting older. Jack Della Maddalena fires a lot of stuff down the middle, and I do think he's going to be able to catch Gilbert Burns, who doesn't really move his head too much. And I don't think the offensive grappling, although is very good when he's on his back, I don't think he's going to be able to take Jack Della Maddalena down. I think there's a lot of I don't even know what you would even call it. I think after his last few fights, I think a lot of people are counting out JDM, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Like, he beat up Basil Hafez pretty badly. I think Hafez got 1 round, and the other 2 rounds I thought Maddalena won pretty clearly. The only thing you kind of get from that is maybe people say like his takedown defense is not that great, which it actually is pretty good. If you've seen his fights, his takedown defense is really good. I think it's more just a fight IQ thing where he's just jumping guillotines, and that has kind of been my worry on his come up, where I do worry about his grappling IQ. Obviously, can't really say his fight IQ too much because he's a really good striker, but I do kind of worry about his grappling IQ. But he has been training a lot with the Australian guys, with Izzy and Volkanovski and Craig Jones. So he's definitely getting a lot better in multiple facets of his game. Against still pretty young. How old is he? 27 years of age. So he's still getting better. He's not even in his prime yet, and he's already coming up towards like the top 5 of this division. Even the Kevin Holland fight, I thought he actually won that one pretty clearly, and a lot of people were calling that robbery. That was annoying. Seeing the Basil Hafez fight, people saying that was a robbery, it was pretty annoying. He does get another fan favorite here. Hopefully, I mean, just for someone that wants to see JDM succeed in the division, who's actually a very good striker and everything like that, hopefully, I think he just gets the finish here against Gilbert Burns, kind of just wipes that all out there, gets a little bit more hype on him, because I just think the split decisions just look rough on his record when they really shouldn't even be there in the first place. But I do think JDM, insane power. Once he gets in that flow state, he can't really get... His boxing is just so crisp. I'm just going to be honest. I think he tags Gilbert Burns early on. Gilbert Burns does kind of wing shots. I think in this fight, I think we'll see JDM kind of hit his jab and follow up with like a 2, and I think he will hit Burns pretty badly early on, and I think Burns will feel the power, and then we'll sense like, okay, I'm gonna go for a takedown. JDM's gonna stuff it, and I think we'll start to see Gilbert Burns start winging shots, and I think it's gonna get really sloppy, and I think JDM's just gonna be able to weave out of the way and then counter Gilbert Burns, and I think this might be a late first round or second round TKO win for JDM. I think the power's on his side. I think he's getting a lot better in the grappling. I don't think he's going to make the same mistakes. He has to actually get to the ground with Gilbert Burns for Gilbert Burns to actually enable some of that grappling. I don't think Gilbert Burns is like going to climb his back or anything like that standing up. So I'm going to go with JDM here by TKO, late first round, second round TKO in this one. The power's just a little bit too much. I think Gilbert Burns is a little bit older, coming off a pretty rough injury. I'm going JDM by TKO. Up the card, we have Kevin Holland versus MVP. I am going to go with MVP in this fight. I think his style is going to give Kevin Holland some problems. I can just see him like tearing up his leg, just being super technical, staying on the outside. Kevin Holland just not being able to catch him. I know MVP does have a pretty relatively similar style to Wonder Boy, and Kevin Holland was able to have some success early on against Wonder Boy. I know he did injure his hand at some point in that fight, which did kind of limit his offense a little bit more, but I think the style of staying on the outside, similar to what Wonder Boy did, and landing some of those shots, like just chewing out the leg and then eventually going a little bit higher. I think MVP will win this fight. I don't think he will finish Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland has a very good chin. We saw that against JDM. JDM even had like a hard time like kind of landing clean on Kevin Holland in that fight as well. Michael Chiesa was Michael Chiesa at this point. Like, he didn't even fight back. Kevin Holland did not look good against Santiago Ponzinibbio. I know he got that finish, but he did not look that great. I think he probably should have gotten that finish a little bit earlier. But again, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, he was able to catch Wonderboy, I think like in the first or second round. But then again, he just didn't have too much offense. Of course, I do think he like injured his hand on like the temple of Wonderboy at some point in that fight, and it did probably limit him a little bit more there. But I think MVP is just going to stay on the outside, just tap at him a little bit more, win this one by a decision, maybe 30-27. I don't know if Kevin Holland lands too clean on MVP here. I just think MVP is just going to be a little bit more technical than Kevin Holland in this fight. So I'm going to go MVP 30-27 decision here. They're saying Page by KO. I think that's actually kind of crazy. MVP is the underdog according to Tapology. So a lot of good underdogs on this card. Definitely something to look at. Of course, a lot of these fights are relatively competitive as well. I don't think MVP is going to get there in the pocket and do some crazy stuff with Kevin Holland. I just don't see that happening. I know Kevin Holland's very long, but again, I think MVP is just going to be able to stay on the outside, tap at him. No pokeballs. There's not going to be a finish. He's not going to roll it and do whatever celebration. I think this one's going to be a decision. It's going to be a little bit, I don't want to call it boring, but I think it's just going to be, it's not going to be maybe what some people are expecting, where it's going to be an all-out crazy war. Maybe it is. Kevin Holland does have that ability, so we'll see how this one goes. I do think MVP, though, pretty decisive decision here. Up the card, we had Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis. I did make an early prediction for this fight. I think I did pick Dustin Poirier for this one. Of course, a lot of things can change from the early prediction. I say it in the video all the time. A lot of things can change from the early prediction to the actual card, and I did think about this fight quite a bit because I feel like it could go two different ways relatively easily. I feel like Benoit Saint Denis just has this ability to finish these guys, and that ability is very strong. And Dustin Poirier has the ability to where he's not really going to get broken. Obviously, he could get KO'd, but like mentally, he's going to be in that fight. He could easily turn Benoit Saint Denis where Benoit Saint Denis is just not defensively as aware as a lot of fighters are. Poirier could definitely take advantage of that. But for this one, I think I am going to switch my pick to Benoit Saint Denis. I actually thought about this one pretty hard and heavy. And I just don't know if I can trust Dustin Poirier after a head kick, really bad head kick KO 7 months ago in his last fight. I think Benoit Saint Denis, when I did look at his fights, when I went through when I did my early prediction for some of his fights, I talked about the Thiago Moises fight where he got very aggressive, started punching against Thiago Moises against the fence, and Thiago Moises was tagging him, and Moises is not that great on the feet, and Benoit Saint Denis' defense looked horrible, which is kind of what influenced me to kind of pick Dustin Poirier in the early prediction. However, I just don't think Benoit Saint Denis had respect for Thiago Moises on the feet. And I do think he will have that respect for Dustin Poirier. Again, when I talked about on the early prediction video, I also mentioned that in the Michael Chandler fight against Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler was able to land a couple body kicks. He kind of went away from it. I think it was in like the first or second round. I'm pretty sure it was the first before he actually hurt Dustin Poirier against the fence. He hit him with a couple good body kicks, and Dustin Poirier didn't really do too much. I think if probably Chandler stuck with it, he probably could have done decent there. But I think I am going to go with Benoit Saint Denis here. I think his body kicks is probably one of his strongest part of his game. Other than his wrestling, he's a very strong grappler. You saw that against Thiago Moises, a very, very strong guy on the ground. I think the body kicks are really going to be a big difference maker here, especially in a 5-round fight. I think it could definitely take the win out of Dustin Poirier. The thing that Dustin Poirier lost to in his last fight was a head kick, and what Benoit Saint Denis won, of course, in his last fight against Matt Furbola was the head kick as well, but he didn't really set it up with the body kick too much. In this fight, he's going to be able to set it up. If he continues to go to the body, and if Dustin Poirier is probably going to have his hands a little bit higher, let's be real, like he lost to a head kick in his last fight. His guard might be a little bit higher, so those body kicks are just going to be open a lot in this fight, and eventually Dustin Poirier is going to have to block down a little bit more, and maybe that head kick will be there for Benoit Saint Denis. Again, we don't know what Benoit Saint Denis' cardio will look like. Even if he does wrestle, that is kind of a worry. If he does wrestle, what his cardio will look like. However, I do think his finishing ability is just going to be really, really impactful for this fight. I think it's definitely going to benefit him here. I can see him finishing Dustin Poirier in like the second or third round. I think he eats to the body. My one worry is that he does get like a little bit overzealous, kind of like what Michael Chandler did when he hurt Dustin Poirier. He just starts going off on the fence, and Benoit Saint Denis gets tagged himself. I know the only time we really seen him get hurt was against he got hit pretty hard against Thiago Moises when he was not as defensively aware, and we do realize that he's extremely tough and has a really good chin as well. So maybe you can take some of the shots against Dustin Poirier. I do think if this was like a heavier power puncher, I would be a little bit more worried about Benoit Saint Denis in this fight. However, I think a 35-year-old Dustin, although the outputs just might be a little bit too much for some of these guys where he just piles it on, I don't think that's going to be the case for this one. I think, again, the body kicks are just going to be a little bit too strong for Benoit Saint Denis here. He can rely on the grappling if he needs to. I'm going Benoit Saint Denis. You can't really say TKO against Dustin, so I'll say KO against Dustin Poirier here in the second or third round. I'm going to go TKO. I think he hurts the body pretty badly. I think he kind of shuts Dustin Poirier down a little bit more and lands the TKO strikes, takes him down, and just ground and pounds him. Second or third round there. Again, I think he just eats the body. The only reason why I'm changing this one up is because I do think he didn't respect Thiago Moises on the feet. And I think that's mentally, that's kind of what I was thinking about. Not specifically that fight, just how this fight could definitely go. Because I feel like Dustin Poirier, just like how Benoit Saint Denis was trying to finish Thiago Moises, he was in the same position against Michael Chandler, was able to come back and hurt Michael Chandler pretty badly. But Benoit Saint Denis has a lot better chin than Michael Chandler, and I think he will stick to a game plan a little bit better. Has better fight IQ for sure. Has very good wrestling as well, and we've seen Dustin Poirier get absolutely out-grappled and out-wrestled on the ground by Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler. We didn't see it in the Justin Gaethje fight, but he got completely outclassed on the ground, and honestly, when he just gets taken down, he doesn't do anything. So if Benoit Saint Denis wants to take a little bit of a break, he can probably just chill on Dustin Poirier for like an entire round. Dustin Poirier won't even try to get up at this point. So I'm going Benoit Saint Denis by TKO in the second or third round. I think he shuts down Dustin Poirier to the body. Maybe he lands the head kick. That would be a pretty rough one to see again if Dustin Poirier goes out again with the head kick especially. But I think he just shuts the body down a little bit more. I think Dustin Poirier is going to gas out. I know Dustin Poirier isn't a guy that's going to really break too hard, at least in any of his fights. It's really hard to mentally break him. But I think when you go to the liver too many times, kind of similar to what you saw against Ismail Bonfim. Ismail Bonfim is like, keep hitting me with the body, keep hitting, like he's egging it on, like, come on, I didn't feel it. It eventually got to him, and he ended up getting finished. So I'm going Benoit Saint Denis by second or third round TKO. Up the card to our main event, we have Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera. I did make a in-depth breakdown or prediction of this fight, I believe, a couple days ago, like last Friday. So if you wanted to check that out, you can. It's like 8 or 10 minutes long. So I'm going to go with Sean O'Malley in this fight. I think Cheeto, although the first fight he did win, he didn't look too great into. I'm not going to give you the cliff notes here, but I'm going to go through it a little bit more. If you want to check like a little bit more of an in-depth video, you can check out the video I made for this fight specifically. But Sean O'Malley, no, going to the first fight, Cheeto didn't look too great. I'm going to be honest, like he didn't land much. Obviously, the fight didn't go on for too long, and Sean O'Malley's leg just completely went out. So you never really know how that fight was going to go. However, I do think Sean O'Malley was probably going to win it because the output was a lot higher. He was landing a lot better on Cheeto before he did get knocked down, and obviously he got finished on the ground as well. So that's what it is. It's the only loss on Sean O'Malley's record, which is why this is such an important fight for him. Sean O'Malley, though, I think does a really good job at maintaining space on the outside, is going to be able to maintain space between him and Cheeto Vera with especially good footwork, speed as well. I think he's going to teep to the body, and Cheeto's just going to try and walk forward. I think his style of kind of just being very patient and just trying to find that shot is definitely going to hurt him here. I think he's going to kind of get frustrated because Sean O'Malley, again, I think he's going to end up having Cheeto Vera chase him around the octagon. This is basically what this is going to be. It's a bigger octagon, of course. I mentioned that in my breakdowns that Cheeto Vera is kind of used to fighting in those smaller octagons at the apex, and that won't benefit him here at all, because what happens when it's a smaller octagon, you don't really have to go as far when you're fighting a guy that'll circle around, kind of like similar to Dominic Cruz, although defensively he wasn't as aware as he normally is. I know Dominic Cruz's style is kind of crazy, but it's an older Dominic Cruz. The defense is going to be perfect. He's able to track Dominic Cruz pretty good there. I know Corey Sandhagen fight, he got destroyed. That was a little bit different. I think that one was in the Apex, right? The Corey Sandhagen fight. I can't remember if they were in an arena for that one. It was in San Antonio, so it was the bigger cage as well, and Corey Sandhagen just absolutely destroyed him there. So Cheeto Vera, Dominic Cruz got the win there. Rob Font, I mean, even just talking about style there, Rob Font just completely outstrikes him and then just wins off of knockdowns is basically how Cheeto Vera won that fight. Like every single fight, it seems like he's just getting completely outstruck. And he gets the KO. Same thing with Frankie Edgar, losing that fight until he gets the KO with the front kick. Very rough fights to watch, especially because two of them are legends, but that's just kind of his style. And I think Sean O'Malley's lengthier style, going to be able to maintain some space from Cheeto Vera, keep at the body, go at the legs as well. I think Cheeto Vera is just going to get very frustrated. I think it's probably like 49-46 decision for Sean O'Malley. Maybe Cheeto Vera lands a couple good shots early on here, but I do think Sean O'Malley finds his range a little bit too quick, and to throw too many feints at Cheeto Vera just kind of frees him up a little bit more. Doesn't really know what to bite on for Cheeto Vera here. Just kind of land that shot to take out O'Malley. Maybe he's going to try and just spam leg kicks, and hopefully that Ecuadorian toe just completely destroys Sean O'Malley's leg and just shuts it down again. That would be pretty rough, especially for Sean O'Malley, because you can't really do too much about that. He does have some good checks. He's been checking the leg kicks pretty well, especially recently. But I'm going Sean O'Malley by decision, 49-46. Nothing too crazy to really predict for this fight. I think it will be a little bit slower than maybe what some people are thinking. I think if this does get into the pocket, Cheeto Vera is definitely going to win. I just think the power is just a little bit too strong there. Sean O'Malley has a really good chin, but again, Cheeto Vera is just going to be there the entire fight. I wonder what Sean O'Malley is going to look like for 5 rounds here. I wonder if he does wrestle. You did see Corey Sandhagen wrestle early on in their fight, so you've seen a lot of guys that actually end up beating Cheeto Vera wrestle early on and are just able to hold him down. And then Cheeto Vera's takedown defense definitely gets a lot better as the fight goes on. Jose Aldo did the same thing. Corey Sandhagen is able to mix in the takedowns. We'll see how this one goes. We'll see if Sean O'Malley wrestles early on. I think because it is a 5-round fight, I wonder what Sean O'Malley's thinking and what his cardio is that way. But again, I think he will be fine all 5 rounds. I think 49-46, maybe 50-45. I think he's just going to be a little bit, just going to out technique Cheeto Vera, throw too many feints, freeze him up. Cheeto Vera is just not going to really know what to commit to at least anything. I think maybe 49-46, you can say like maybe the last round Cheeto Vera probably gets where he just is like, screw it, I'm just going to try and walk this guy down and try and catch him with something. Maybe just lands a better shot, similar to what he did Corey Sandhagen. He kind of just said screw it towards it, like at the end, and was able to land some shots there. I don't know if the majority scorecards gave him that last round. I know someone gave him the fight, which was absolutely stupid. One of the worst scorecards you'll ever see, but Sean O'Malley by decision here. Let me know what you guys have down below in the comments. I'll see you guys next time.